Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be decluttering and organising my capsule wardrobe. I didn't set out to create a capsule wardrobe. In fact, I've never really considered myself overly interested in fashion or wardrobe curation for curation's sake, but as I've been decluttering and trying to live more intentionally over the last few years, I've slowly been paring down my wardrobe and now I find myself here.
The first time I decluttered my wardrobe, it was thanks to Marie Kondo, which I imagine for a lot of people is a way they have first been introduced to living more intentionally. And the ideas that she shared in her book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, really did help me part with a lot of clothes I was hanging on to, clothes that were too small, too tired. And for me, a big thing was I was hanging on to a lot of clothes for sentimental reasons, things that had been gifted. And so that first foray into her book really helped me part with a lot. Like, we're talking bin bags and bin bags. And then around 2 years ago, I came across the concept of Project 333.
Project 333 was the brainchild of Courtney Carver, who, tired with her wardrobe and never knowing what to wear each day, challenged herself to wear just 33 items over 3 months. If you haven't come across the concept before, it can sound a little extreme, and it did to me at the time too. I remember explaining it to friends when I first tried it, and them all looking just a little bit baffled. But the fact is, most of us wear around 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time, so we're probably operating on a much smaller day-to-day wardrobe than it at first appears. What I would say is, if there's something that interests you at all, and possibly it does if you're watching this video, then I would highly recommend trying it. Coming from someone who has rejected routine and rules of any kind for most of my life, I was surprised by how freeing and easy I found it. And it's important to remember, the first time I tried Project 333, I didn't really declutter or get rid of many clothes. Instead, I used an approach similar to what I'm going to do today. Essentially, I took everything out of my wardrobe and chest of drawers, and I only put back in the 33 items I intended to wear over the next 3 months. And I packed the rest away into boxes. So there was no pressure on me to get rid of it immediately. I just wanted at that stage to try living with the 33 items and to see how it felt, to see how I got on. One important thing to know about the challenge is that Courtney Carver doesn't consider sleepwear, leisure wear, or in some instances uniform to count towards the 33 items. So if you have gym workout wear you're wearing to the gym, it doesn't count. But if you're just wearing those yoga pants on the school run, you gotta count them. Despite these flexibilities and the fact that they don't count, I've found over the last 2 years of doing this that carefully considering your wardrobe does inadvertently shine a spotlight on these other areas of your wardrobe too, and I've definitely condensed and decluttered my gym clothes and my sleepwear over the years too. There are also rules which, from my reading of Carver's book about Project 333, I consider can be bent. For instance, I am going to count bags, shoes and coats in my 33 items, but I haven't ever counted jewellery, whereas Courtney did.
And this was all going really well for me until I discovered Vinted. I say discovered, I knew it was there, right? I hadn't really used it before, and I've got some great bits on Vinted. Also recently I've ended up with quite a few bits that I probably didn't need and I'm definitely not wearing, and when they've arrived they don't even really fit very well. And I think part of my problem is I've been giving Vinted and also charity shops a little bit of a get out of jail free card. And whilst I definitely recognise that there's a very valid argument there for shopping at charity shops and on Vinted versus just shopping fast fashion on the high street, in terms of my consumption and my wardrobe, I've really noticed that yeah, I've been kind of in my head maybe putting them in a different category, and the influx is probably not what it needs to be, even though it's coming from Vinted and charity shops. I haven't been shopping in the most mindful way, and even some things that I bought in charity shops, once I bring them home, I'm not really liking them. I try to think of it in that instance as just a donation to charity, but the argument is still that I then have the item in my home when it could be being enjoyed in somebody else's home. And one of the key things that I feel like decluttering programs or even videos like this on the internet never really address is not so much about how to declutter and get stuff out of the house, because there's plenty of that information around, but not everybody really talks about the fact that we then need to slow down the influx of stuff into our houses too. So I've decided to do another strict Project 333 this January to both try and slow down that influx of stuff into my house. I'm going to kind of combine it with a little bit of a no buy, really just focus on the items that I chosen to put in my wardrobe and enjoy just sort of wearing and styling those pieces. And also to remind me of what I really enjoyed about it when I did it the first time round, which was in a very strict way the first time round. The only exceptions that I'm allowing myself are if anything breaks, I will allow myself to replace it, or I am allowing myself an exception if I make any of the clothes. So if it's fabric or wool that I already own, because I don't want to be buying more just to make stuff for my wardrobe. So if it's fabric or wool that I already own, I'm going to allow myself to make items for my wardrobe out of it, in addition to the 33 that I'm going to choose. And also I'm going to be bridesmaid for my friend's wedding in April. So sometime in the spring, I will be buying a bridesmaid's dress, and that's okay. That's not going to count in my Project 333.
I'm hoping that I'll be reminded of how little I actually need and curb my consumption at the same time. Also, having started the video saying that I'm not very into fashion, I think there's a little bit of an imposter syndrome hang up from secondary school there, from not being one of the stereotypically fashionable girls, but I do, in all honesty, enjoy putting outfits together, having a more refined wardrobe, and this allows me to hone my style too and focus on those things that I really enjoy wearing.
So to begin with, I'm going to take everything out of my wardrobe and my chest of drawers, then put back in any leisure wear or sleepwear I know I'm going to be using, because I said that's not counting in the project rules. I'm also going to bring down any of my out of season clothes, although I did sort my wardrobe in autumn, so I don't think there's going to be a huge amount there that I'm going to want to swap out. It's mostly summer clothes, and it being January, I don't think there is, but just to show you how I do the whole process normally, I'm going to bring all of those down as well. So I feel like it's always at this stage that you start to feel a little bit overwhelmed, like, what have I started? I feel like that's normal too.
Well, once I've taken everything out, I'm going to put back in the things I absolutely love and I know I'll wear all the time, the sort of non-negotiables. If you're doing this for the first time, it's also really helpful at this stage to think about where you're actually wearing your clothes and what percentage of the time you spend there. For instance, do you spend 80% of your time wearing smart office clothes and 20% of your time in casual weekend wear? Or maybe you're a stay-at-home mum who actually needs the majority of your wardrobe to be comfy and practical, and you could do to part with maybe more of the going out heels and dresses that don't get worn as much anymore. I'm not saying what you do or don't have to get rid of, but it's definitely worth thinking about where you're actually spending your time versus the composition of your wardrobe. You can also approach this a little like packing for a holiday. The original challenge by Carver isn't organised neatly into seasons. Instead, she talks about how she intentionally challenged herself to select 33 items that would see her across 3 different months weather-wise. And depending on where you live, this might be more or less relevant. But as it's January here, I'm planning mine to last me from January to March, which is pretty much our coldest winter into the start of spring here in the UK, which does make things a little bit easier because I'm essentially doing it for one season.
Though if you are planning a trip to the UK, don't come in January and February unless you like rain.
I also wanted to try and keep a couple of handmade items in my wardrobe. So once I've got my definites, I then like to sort some things into maybe piles and consider how they work with the rest of my wardrobe. I don't have a super strict colour palette that I work to, but I know that some people find that helpful. I just tend to do it more seasonally. So in summer, I bring in more pastels and bright colours, whereas in autumn and winter, I lean more towards autumnal tones. If you like the idea of trying this challenge, you don't have to get rid of everything overnight. Pack away anything that's out of season or anything you didn't quite feel ready to part with yet. But don't keep it in your wardrobe, as that will entirely defeat the object and clarity of the challenge. So if you have an under the bed space or a cupboard or any other sort of space in your house where you can pack away a box of clothes, that's what I would highly recommend. And I'm willing to bet that if you try the project for 3 months, you'll look back at your box of maybes with fresh eyes when you're done and find it much easier to part with them. And if something doesn't make it into your capsule wardrobe for 4 seasons in a row, then you're probably ready to let it go. Okay, so now I've got a pile of stuff I'm going to get rid of for definite, forever, which feels pretty good because this is mostly bulky winter stuff. And like I said, if you put things in a maybe box and then come back to them a season or 2 seasons later, often just really helps solidify your thinking. I haven't worn any of these knits or jumpers at all this winter, so I feel a lot more confident in getting rid of them, knowing that I'm not going to miss them. This fluffy number I do like, but my husband recently gave me a zip-up one, which is very similar, and I just wear more because it's more practical. So I don't need 2 big fluffy cream jumpers. And yeah, everything else is pretty much stuff that's tired or worn or that I bought from charity shops, like this one, and I'm just not going to wear. So note to self, think more before you buy. And then this little pile is going to go back in my seasonal box. $32. Okay, so I got my main wardrobe down to 32 items, including 3 things I'm wearing, which I feel like sounds pretty good, except for the fact we haven't yet taken into account coats, shoes, bags, etc. So I'm going to first narrow down the essential coats and shoes I want to bring forward, and here's what I decided on. 1 lilac coat from Oliver Bonas, 1 brown coat via Vinted, 1 black rain mac, I think I got this on Amazon a few years ago, 1 fake leather bag from Clark's, 1 purple scarf which I've had for around 10 years, 2 pairs of boots, and a pair of trainers I recently acquired, again via Vinted. Don't judge me on how dirty they are. And then because I had a weakness, I added 2 more pairs of shoes, which means some serious editing now has to occur from my final selection. My initial selection for the wardrobe was 1 pink hand knitted jumper, 1 mustard crochet jumper, and 1 mint green crochet vest, 2 pairs of leggings, 4 pairs of trousers, 5 including the one I'm wearing, 2 skirts, 1 which is knitted, 1 which is lightweight, 1 black cami top, 1 long sleeve black top, and then I have 4 t-shirts, 1 which is grey, 1 which is black, pink, a purple and a white, and I'm also wearing a mustard one, so it's definitely not 4, that's 6. 2 long sleeve gingham tops, 1 in brown and 1 in black or white, depending on how you're looking at it. 3 shirts, 1 in dark green, 1 more cropped one in white, and 1 in pale pink. Also a recent vintage buy that I wear a lot, so she can stay. 1 dress that made it into my capsule collection, which is this black midi one. It's from Zara, but my local charity shop seems to have some kind of arrangement with Zara seconds. 1 black hoodie with a, what are we calling it? A quarter zip? I don't know these terms. And finally, a very healthy selection. Too many. Look at that face. That face says too many of essentially the same cream or off-white jumper or cardigan variation. I feel very attached to all of them. This was a difficult one to decide. I identified that this was an area where I had too many, and I did whittle them down, but it was tricky. And if you've been counting better than me, this brought us up to around
45.
So I had to do some more whittling. And that final edit is normally the hardest part, but I gave it all a good long stare, a good hard stare, as Paddington would say. And I removed 10 more items after this.
34. 34.
I haven't especially focused on how many multiple outfits I can create with these items because I'm approaching this more from a consumption point of view than purely a fashion styling challenge. But I know that because everything here is something I love and I've done this a few times now, I'm confident I can get it all to work together, and there's quite a few different outfits mixing and matching here. One last tip I have for you, whether you're trying out Project 333 or not, is the reverse hanger rule. You can go to your wardrobe right now and turn around all your hangers. Each time you take something out to wear it, you can turn the hanger the right way around. If something is still backwards after, say, 3 months, you really need to ask yourself, does this deserve a spot in my wardrobe? Or even more importantly, to make up 1/33 of my wardrobe. When I was sorting out my wardrobe, these 3 items were still hung the wrong way, and although I was really tempted to keep them in because I like them all, I haven't worn them in a good 2 or 3 months, so they didn't make the cut in this round of my Project 333. But who knows, maybe spring is their season. So thank you so much for joining me in my Project 333 sort out. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please do give me a like or a thumbs up if you did, and I hope to see you very soon with another similar kind of video.